Chadi. Everyone loves Chadi stuff, man. The Chadi just came and hijacked their stream. Dude, Chadi's channel is dope. Look at this. Yeah, Chadi's the man. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's this is the best crossover ever.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Shadi, and today it's gonna be Judo versus Pencak Silat, Japan and Indonesia. So this video is gonna be different than my usual Judo versus, because this time it's not gonna be just the takedowns and how they approach them differently in competition, but rather this time it's gonna be a deep dive into history, their roots, ancestry, and how they came to be competitive sports, very well-known sports. Pencak Silat is incredibly popular worldwide. Here in France, I was actually surprised it is very big. So like I said, I'm gonna go through history, how they became competitive, and what the aspects they focus on as competitive arts or sports. And finally, I'm gonna go through weapons, because weapons are neglected in my Judo talks, but Pencak Silat are incredibly expressive and have a big arsenal of weapons. So this is a good opportunity to discuss this, because it is a wide range of weapons that they possess. So without any further ado, the first one is gonna be, of course, history and ancestry. So I've talked about the history of Judo countless of times, but Judo in short, 1882, Jigoro Kano Shihan founded the Kodokan in Tokyo. He mainly studied Tenshin Shinryu Jujutsu, and later on studied Kitoryu Jujutsu and founded the Kodokan at the just age of 22 years old. And it came from Jujutsu, the art of the samurai, the art of warfare, but it became this art for physical, moral, and intellectual education to turn society into a better place. Unlike the old Jiu-Jitsu that was falling out of favor, and it was this hostile practice that was for thugs. So Jiu-Jitsu mainly, it was art for internal turmoil, because a lot of the centuries, throughout the centuries, Japan had a lot of inner feuds until the Edo period, until it became united. Now, of course, there were times where they had to fend off invaders, like example the Mongols, but mainly it was a lot of koryus against each other, clans, up until the Edo period, until Jiu-Jitsu became very much competitive. And there's also the sumo ancestry of it up until the Edo period, until Jiu-Jitsu took its rise and thus gave birth to Judo through Kano Sensei. So when it comes to Pencak Silat, however, by the way, this is a footage from 1929 in Sumatra, Indonesia. So the term Pencak Silat actually is a mixture. You have it's an umbrella term actually for all the fighting styles of the region of Indonesia, because you have Pencak from the region of Java, and Silat, it is most likely coming from Sumatra. So the earliest evidence of it is from the 6th century. There are over 150 styles. Yes, this is how vast it is, and they are all based on cultures and regions. That's why they differ in expressions and styles. So obviously I cannot go through it all of them. I'm gonna go mainly through the sports aspect later on, but like I said, it is a sport. It is 150 styles. It is an umbrella term for all those fighting arts. Pencak from Java, Central and East Java, and of course Sumatra, where the term Silat most likely came from. So unlike Japan, Indonesia had colonizers. You had the Dutch, you had the Portuguese. Many tried to come in and just use the people and use the resources of the land. Surprisingly, the Dutch and the Portuguese also came to Japan, but they did a lot of business, so it was closed off to itself, but only let in the Portuguese around the 1500s, and of course later on the Dutch, which gave them guns, also the Portuguese as well, and the Chinese. So But in Indonesia, they were mainly colonizers, so a lot of these like fighting vigilante groups were formed in Indonesia. They were called bandits and thugs by the Dutch, and they were using mainly like the agricultural tools as weapons, and also the fighting styles that they were honing depending on the region, like I said, because there are over 150. Just a side note, the garments or what they're wearing is incredibly cool. It's very amazing just looking at the old cultures and see them wearing their old traditional clothes, rather than how it's all became homogenized whenever we see these old footage. So that's something that I believe it should be brought back. Every nation has its expression in terms of fashion. It's not about conservatism or anything. It's just about, you know, reflecting the expression of the country. So that's just side note, just like martial arts. So like I said, they were being used in order to fight off these colonists and doing these little missions, and they were being called pirates and thugs. Obviously they're not gonna paint them in good light, since they are there colonizing the land, and these people were basically fighting them off and wanting to protect their land, their resources. So the history of Pencak Silat of each region is actually pretty vast. I cannot go through it even in just one video. So each style has its story, each style has its region, and the story with the Dutch is incredibly vast. I cannot go through it in this video as well, but the fact that it was like a resistance movement, unlike the Japanese that used it mainly for internal turmoils and feud, and occasionally against invaders like the Mongols, like I mentioned. So now let's move on to competition. So the judo competition, or the sports aspect. So judo became very competitive. The Kodokan competed in tournaments of jiu-jitsu in the Butokukai. That's where they made their famous appearance, also at the Tokyo Police Department as hand-to-hand combat teachers, and they held tournaments there, the police members among themselves, each coming from a different jiu-jitsu school. So they started competing rather early. So but later on, with Kano Sensei becoming the ambassador of sports in Japan and a member of the International Olympic Committee, he wanted to take judo to the next level and make it an Olympic sport. And finally, in 1964, it became an Olympic sport at the Tokyo Olympics. It was its first competitive appearance, but before that they were doing katas at the opening ceremony of prior Olympic Games. So it wasn't the first appearance of judo. So what's cool about judo is that it has its one unified body, like the Kodokan or the IJF style judo. Anywhere in the world where you go, you compete, they have the same rules, they go by the same etiquette. Now there is this distinct branch of very highly skilled ground fighters. We call it Kosen Judo. You see the man here in front of you, Oda Tsunetane, that spearheaded this movement that's mainly focusing on Newaza, because he believed that it gained a lot of competitive edge against traditional judo that's mainly focused on the ippon, throwing, and kata. Of course, randori was a big thing, but Newaza was not the main priority, and Tsunetane Oda made it its main priority, and thus he started to use it as a secret weapon against other schools or high schools of Kosen, or the Koto Senhongako, the technology high-level schools. So it's still a thing of its own, but very secluded, only in 7 universities in Japan. So judo mainly evolved into the ippon throw, and it's followed by the newaza on the ground, but it is not the priority. You can win by the ippon throw, which ends the match, and also by katamewaza, like pins, chokes, and arm locks. And once you tap, obviously that's an ippon. The osaikomi is 20 seconds, and if it's above 10 seconds and they escape. As you see here, escape before the 20th second, it is a wazari. 2 wazaris is 1 ippon. So this is mainly judo with its competitive aspect. Its focus is mainly on the tachiwaza or the stand-up grappling, and mainly nagewaza or the throwing and grip fighting. Of course, the kumikata and on the back burner, or followed by straight newaza. Of course, there is the kata, but there's always competitions of kata. We're gonna go through that in the weapons section. Of course, we're gonna talk about the 2 arts because they both compete with resistance, and they both compete as demonstrations for etiquette and good display of technique, of course. So Pencak Silat, mainly like the world championship, is like these circles you see here in front of you. You are not allowed to attack the face, strike it, or kick it. Takedowns and kicks are allowed, so you can win by putting your opponent on the ground or leaving the big circle. As you see here, you strike the body as where they are wearing armors. Takedowns are allowed. Here you see, for example, there have the reversals like kochigari, sasai. Kani basami is vastly utilized, or the scissor sweep. As you see here, they are trying to kick each other either on the ground or outside. They use stuff. Their takedowns usually resembles like the Muay Thai. You grab the leg and you sweep the other or reap it. There's also the Kani basami, like the scissor sweep, as you just saw. I'm surprised there's no more like shattered knees, because in judo that destroyed so many knees. Yasuhiro Yamashita is one great example. So as you see here, it is, you experience resistance there, but there's no striking to the face. It's a bit like taekwondo almost, but you're not allowed to kick the head. But taekwondo does not have the takedowns like as you see here. That is actually very impressive. You can grab the leg, you can do a single leg, you can do kochigari, you can do deashi harai, sasai tsurikomiyashi. You can do a lot with just grabbing one leg and then attacking the other. So it is a mix of striking and grappling. So you can transition to MMA with a little bit more training, especially strikes to the head, something else like Muay Thai, or any form of striking like Savat, because it is a bit missing. But then again, no martial art is complete. But in terms of what they're doing here in competition with resistance, etc., can be very dangerous, the Kani basami, so please be careful. I think they're doing very good, and it is very impressive, and it is a very popular martial art. Obviously it's doing something right, not just in terms of demonstrations. This was very nasty to look at. So finally, let's go over to weapons. So weapons are mainly done in judo as a form of kata. So let's talk about it, because it did have its own evolution. In the 19th century, a form called kime no kata, you are watching here in front of you. I think it's translated to forms of decisiveness, and it is mainly focusing on self-defense, open hand, and of course weapons. So the weapons were the knife and the sword. Now obviously this is outdated, and it really it really showcases the time period of it, sitting in the seiza position or kneeling, then striking with sword, etc. That's a lot of the 19th century Japanese culture. So later on they had to develop something else, and that was the Goshinjutsu no kata. In the 1950s, a committee, I believe, of 8 people, and they added newer weapons and a newer expression of self-defense. It was the knife, the stick, and the gun, which are contemporary weapons. Even till this day, people will choose either of those 3. Here you see a little bit more of a evolved self-defense you are seeing here at the school of Kizo Mifune. So Even Kyuzo Mifune had his own form of Goshinjutsu no kata. So there is 3 katas of self-defense utilizing the weapons. Now, when it comes to self-defense, it is always evolving. Now we know a little bit more than we did 70 years ago, and of course 125 or 130 years ago, however old the Kime no kata. So I believe that it should be constantly evolving in self-defense. I believe there should be a kata that is like combatives oriented, like you see the army does, or like those combatives courses and self-defense curriculums. These are very much like very monotonous, like the ki is very much anticipated, and then you do your technique against a static opponent in a kata form. Obviously you are showcasing good technique, but at the same time you are also you need to be looking for efficiency. So I believe that combatives should be added to judo in forms of maybe randori, but kata for sure 100%. So here you are seeing they are utilizing the knife strikes, doing wakigatame. It works, like I said, but you need to practice it religiously against someone that's resisting and constantly trying to surprise you. So in short, weapons in judo come in the form of kata, in katas oriented on self-defense, not on understanding technique or basics. So when it comes to silat, there is a wide range of weapons. So there's also forms of demonstrations and drills in classes. I don't know if there is sparring with weapons in terms of competition, but I've seen a lot of footage showing like drills with weapons like the machete, etc. There's a lot of agricultural weapons like the scythe and the sickle, and it really reflects the culture and the tools that these people were using in order to fend off the colonists. So there is a total of 13 weapons being used total in Silat, which is a big range of weapons, and there are pretty sick weapons. They look pretty cool. The demonstrations here you are watching, it showcases good technique, good etiquette, and also of course, you know, just aesthetics. So it is very similar to judo. It revolves around demonstration and practicing striking, and of course defense against weapons and sparring with the weapons. So that makes it really cool. So it is a very popular art for a reason. Its expression, its resistance training, and its aesthetics, and as an art itself, showcasing the culture and also its efficiency and technique. So it is no wonder why it is very popular. So here you see like a collection of daggers. It is very much impressive. So this is mainly it. If you have anything else to add, please let me know down below. Also consider supporting me on Patreon. I have exclusive content for the patrons only, and your support will be greatly appreciated in order to keep this channel going, and also just showcasing your support. I am constantly working on improving my content and also constantly providing videos on a daily basis, so your support will be greatly appreciated. And finally, I would like to say thank you for all the support you showed last night on Shintaro Higashi's stream. It was absolutely amazing to see you all just rush in and showing this type of support. I am beyond grateful. So if you have anything else to add, let me know down below. This was Shadi, and thank you for listening.